And the race for governor is heating up in Mississippi. Voters head to the polls on November 7th. Before you do, we want you to hear from the Republican nominee for governor. Let's bring her right now, Governor Tate Reeves. Thank you so much for being with us.
It's an honor to be here with you tonight.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about just a second time around. How has the campaign trail been for you, and how does this differ from when you ran the first time?
Well, I will tell you, it's been very positive. We've traveled all across Mississippi for months and months now, and people really do appreciate the fact that we have momentum in Mississippi. We've got the lowest unemployment rate in state history. We got more people working than ever before. Our educational achievement levels are at levels that we've never seen before in our state. In fact, our fourth grade reading, for an example, has gone from 49th best in America to 21st best in America. And that's something that people all across the state are proud of. And I believe strongly that success begets success. And we're continuing to see improvements in education. So from an economic standpoint, from an educational standpoint, we're seeing major progress in Mississippi. And I think people are excited about getting out to the polls on Tuesday.
Yeah, let's talk about a little bit more about education.
Sure.
You touched on that. And I want to bring up the 2023 Kid Count Data Book, which does back you up on Mississippi jumping up in terms of overall rankings in education. According to the Annie E. Casey Foundation, Mississippi is ranked 32nd. That's a big jump from over the decade, but not as great. 48th overall for child well-being, 47th in economic well-being, 50th in health, 50th in family and community. That's a big question for our voters. What will you prioritize as governor when it comes to education, maybe some of those issues that you're not doing as well in?
Well, obviously, education is critically important. We've seen our high school graduation rates jump from 72.5% 10 years ago to 88.9% of our kids actually graduated high school last year. In addition to that, we had the largest teacher pay raise in state history. Our teachers now make $6,100 more per year than they made just a few years ago. And so we've seen a lot of progress. We've got more work to do. And I've said as governor, my job is not to try to hide our challenges, it's to try to fix our challenges. And whether it be fourth grade reading or fourth grade math, high school graduation rates, teacher pay, we're moving up the charts in virtually every one of those. The other area where we can make significant improvements in some of those areas that you mentioned is clearly job creation, bringing better and higher paying jobs to the people of Mississippi and investing in our people. For example, we've seen an overhaul of our workforce development, workforce training system, where we're now investing in our people, training them for the jobs of the next 50 years, which are not necessarily the same as the jobs of the last 50 years. I'm incredibly proud of what's happening in our state from an economic standpoint, but we've got more work to do, and we're going to continue to work to make that a reality.
And is it something that, when you talk about the economics, about attracting some of those companies to Magnolia State, what have been some wins, and what are you saying as what they want to see as I'm choosing Mississippi as where I want to grow my business?
Well, the single most important thing that I hear from an economic development standpoint is that during the global pandemic, when so many blue states that were run by blue state governors were shut down, Mississippi was open for business. And people got to see that our people got up and they went to work. We protected both lives and livelihoods. And because of that, we've seen record economic development in our state. In fact, in 2022, I announced over $6 billion in new capital investment in 2022 alone, including the largest economic development project in state history down in the Golden Triangle, which was a $2.5 billion capital investment. But the most important thing is they're bringing 1,000 jobs, paying almost $100,000 a year. So what we're really trying to focus on is those jobs that have higher wages, that require greater skills. We're investing in our people, and our per capita incomes are actually up from $36,000 a year to almost $45,000 a year in just the last 5 years.
For many of our voters, you know, Memphis and Mississippi shares a border with DeSoto County, and crime is an ongoing issue that some leaders in DeSoto County and Mississippi have spoken out about a lot, particularly because crossing over borders with crimes happening in DeSoto County and vice versa because of the proximity. What is your relationship in Tennessee, and what would you say to those voters in DeSoto County who are saying, what are you going to do to make sure that we're safe in Mississippi?
Well, I will tell you, I'm proud to have the support and the endorsement of Sheriff Thomas Tuggle in DeSoto County. He's worked at the Mississippi Highway Patrol for a number of years, and he's going to do a great job on crime in DeSoto County. And look, here's the deal. In Mississippi, we back the blue. We're going to support our law enforcement officers. We're going to make sure they have the resources that they need to tackle that crime. And if you do a crime in DeSoto County, Mississippi, you just need to know that you're going to do the time as well, because we have strong law enforcement there. We work with the mayors in DeSoto County as well. And so we want to continue to make sure that we support our men and women that wear the uniform. And as long as I'm governor, we always will.
And, you know, Governor, this morning we did speak to the Democratic nominee for Governor, Brennan Presley, who says you have, quote, written off DeSoto County. How do you respond to that? And what specifically have you done to make North Mississippi better?
Well, my opponent has been lying a lot in this campaign, and obviously I haven't seen that interview. But I will tell you this, we have always done phenomenally well in DeSoto County. We plan to do very, very well here on Tuesday. But we got to get people to go to the polls. That's why we're having these conversations, is encouraging people to get to the polls, go vote, because we're going to decide if California and New York, who has given my opponent 80% of the money that he's raised has come from California, New York, and Washington, D.C. They don't just want to change governors. They want to change Mississippi. And so conservatives and like-minded individuals all over the North Mississippi have to go to the polls on Tuesday and say we're simply not for sale in Mississippi, and that we're not going to allow a liberal Democrat to take over our state.
One thing that I've seen on multiple ads have been coming out during this whole election season is your stance on Medicaid and the fact that you are not for expansion. It's something that your opponent is for. Why not? Why not expanding Medicaid?
Well, it doesn't make financial sense, first of all, for the state of Mississippi. I've actually proposed a plan wherein we're going to provide up to $673 million for hospitals throughout Mississippi. The hospital in Olive Branch, as an example, would be due approximately $10 million for that one hospital alone. It's much better for the financials of the state. Right now, Mississippi has 800,000 people on Medicaid. What my opponent wants to do is add 300,000 additional Mississippians to the welfare rolls, and these are able-bodied adults. The challenge also is that of those 300,000 that would be added to the government health care rolls, approximately 100,000 of them right now are on private insurance. And so if you like your private insurance, then you're not going to like my opponent's plan, because you may be one of those individuals that moves from your private insurance to the government rolls. It doesn't make sense for Mississippi. It doesn't make sense financially for the hospitals and the providers, and it doesn't make sense for those individuals that are currently on private insurance to be moved to the government rolls.
You know, we're talking a bit about this actual election season, and it's been a lot of money spent in Mississippi for this race for governor. I think the last numbers we ran was $20 million spent. That's a lot of money.
Unprecedented.
Unprecedented amount of money to be spent on a race in a state that is one of the poorer states in the country. What is your response to people who are saying, why are we spending this much money on a campaign race? We've seen this in other races in other states for sure, but why so much money?
Well, I will tell you, my opponent has raised $12 million, over 80% of which comes from California, New York, and Washington, D.C. He's raised $10 million from 3 states that are nowhere near here. And so what the voters ought to be asking themselves is, why? Why are these people in California and New York so interested in flipping Mississippi blue? And the answer to that is because we have a conservative state that is showing success. We've had success in economics, we've had success in education, we've had success in protecting our values and protecting our principles, and that makes the far left radicals at the Democrat National Committee nervous, because it messes with their thoughts that these far left liberal policies actually work, because they don't. Conservative policies work, and that's what's happening in Mississippi, and that's the reason they're spending unprecedented, unheard of amounts of money against us in this race. But it's also the reason that voters are going to get up and go to the polls on Tuesday and vote overwhelmingly to tell those radicals in California, New York, and Washington, Mississippi is not for sale.
In the last week, we've seen former President Donald Trump come out and support you, endorse you in your candidacy. Why was he important? And what does that say about your campaign? Why did you want him to be one of the final words to push for Tate Reeves for governor?
Well, President Trump and I have known each other for a long time. I supported him in the 2016 race while my opponent was supporting Hillary Clinton. I supported President Trump for re-election in 2020 and ran his campaign in Mississippi when my opponent was supporting Joe Biden. And so President Trump came out and supported me in this race because he understands that the policies that Joe Biden is implementing in Washington, D.C. are wrong for Mississippi. And so the people of Mississippi have a choice to make on Tuesday. If they think Joe Biden is doing a great job for America, then they can vote for my opponent. But if they think that we have a brighter future ahead because conservative policies work, then they can vote for me. And certainly President Trump is a good spokesperson for an economy that was working prior to Joe Biden coming into office.
And finally, as we wrap up this interview, I just, of course, want to give you the final word here. As voters are going into that ballot to cast their ballot into their local precincts, what specific issues or what specific thing is like a vote for me will get you this? Is it economic or education or whatever the one issue that you say, this is what you will see in the next 4 years that will actually happen?
We passed the largest tax cut in state history, reducing the income tax in Mississippi. We have the 5th lowest income tax of the 41 states in America that have an income tax. And my goal is to eliminate that income tax so that we can be on par with Tennessee, Texas, and Florida. And so if you elect Tate Reeves, I'm going to fight every day to further eliminate your income taxes, allowing you to keep more money in your pocket so you can spend on yourself and not spend on government.
Very good. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll be in right outside of Jackson, as well as watching on election night, Action News 5. We'll have a crew there. We'll bring you the very latest when it happens.